Welcome back to Movies at 2 a.m., the show where we discuss B movies, bad movies, low budget movies, box office bombs, critical disappointments, and all manner of obscure film. I'm Bryce Huffman, once again joined by the homie Sydney.
Hi.
Oh, and today we are discussing the 2004 comedy Soul Plane.
Well,
that reaction is...
I mean that in the best way, but oh my God.
No, that reaction, I mean, depending on who you are, that reaction is spot on. So tell me, you actually picked this one off of our movie list. What made you want to pick Soul Plane?
I definitely picked Soul Plane because there's so much going on in this movie. I feel like there's so much to discuss. And I think it's just like, it's also just like kind of one of those movies where I don't think it's definitely a movie where like you might always be like, turn that on. But if it's on, if you were like ever somewhere and it's on, you probably watch it and you're definitely gonna laugh. Like I said, right. It's chaotic. It's all over the place, but it definitely is like one of those early Kevin Hart movies that I like. Yeah. So it's it got its moments.
Yeah, this was definitely like Kevin Hart's first like leading role in a big time movie. I think it was either this movie or Paper Soldiers that I saw first, and that was like my introduction to Kevin Hart. I didn't know who he was before. I knew of
Paper Soldiers, but I've never seen it.
Never.
No. I'll add that to the list.
Well, you know what we're doing next time we hang out with Irving. Yep. Before we get into the full blowout of the movie, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And of course, spoiler warning if you've never seen Soul Plane, but let's be real. Have. If you clicked on this, you've probably seen it.
You've seen it.
And if you haven't, well, if you've seen Airplane, imagine like the BET After Dark edition of Airplane. That should have been my synopsis now that I think of it. That was a missed opportunity. But the IMDb synopsis for this one, again, pretty bland for what the movie is. Pretty bland. Yeah. Things get raucously funny aboard the maiden flight of a black-owned airline thanks to some last-minute passenger additions. Like that. Yeah. That doesn't give shit away. Like that doesn't entice anyone to watch this movie.
But honestly, I think that might be good because then when you go into the movie and the amount of shit that's happening in the movie, you're like, I was not expecting that from what the description of this movie is.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember the trailer because, like, what was the trailer like?
I didn't watch the trailer before this. I vaguely remember the trailer because I remember the trailer made it seem like Snoop Dogg was the star of the movie. Because who the fuck knew who Kevin Hart was in 2004 other than like diehard stand-up comic fans, right? Most people didn't know who he was, so like they sold the movie with like all these stars. Snoop Dogg was the pilot, so naturally we assume he's like the main
Monique
character.
Was in it.
Yeah, there's a fuck ton of people in this movie. Kevin Hart, Method Man, Snoop Dogg, Tom Arnold, Monique, Missy Pyle, Gary Anthony Williams, Sofia Vergara before Modern Family. Godfrey.
That's actually a very funny casting choice. That
was a great casting choice.
It is, but it's so funny. Yeah. I'm just wondering how they got her in like this, like, basically almost like this damn, like you said, this underground like BET After Dark movie.
Yeah, I imagine I had only seen her in one movie before this, and because that movie isn't that good, her agent was probably just like, well, it's a funny movie. You get to look good in it. Maybe you just get typecast as the hot Latina chick, which she kind of sort of happened.
Yeah, that's what she did.
So, it worked out in the end.
It did.
Also, John Witherspoon is in this movie. Katie Albert plays the love interest. D.L. Hughley is in this movie. Carl Malone is in this movie. Ugh. Like, there's a lot of fucking people in this movie. Yeah. But my synopsis for the movie, in this black reimagining of the classic comedy Airplane, Kevin Hart gets $100 million after suing an airline and decides to start his own. But much like a lot of other movies in the 2000s, this movie goes out of its way to be a minstrel show for 90 straight minutes. Soul Plane.
It does.
Yeah. Admittedly, this movie probably got too much flack for what it is back in the day, because at the end of the day, it's a comedy. It's meant to be fun, and it is fun.
Yeah. And it's definitely a more like, it was obviously supposed to be like a more raunchy comedy
right?
too.
Like it's R-rated. This was not like we talked about Johnson Family Vacation a little while ago. This movie's not like that. Like this was meant to be for adults. Meant to be something that you laugh at. Given the amount of alcohol and drugs in this movie, you're probably supposed to be under the influence of one or both of those things when you watch it. So it's a movie that, you know, it fit what it was trying to do, I think.
I agree. Yeah, I think that I think with movies made during that early 2000s period, I think people have to, for one, I think their expectations have to be a little bit lower. And then I also think being like how you might take the jokes or like just being a little more sensitive, like, you know, I think that also needs to be regulated, because it's just like you are not gonna get the, you know, you weren't gonna get the smart, you know, like the smart jokes and stuff like that from Soul Plane. Like, don't
it's not how to stay.
Exactly. You were not gonna get that from Soul Plane, so it's like don't go in there, you know, with that like don't go in there with that mindset.
Yeah, and it's one of those movies, like I remember seeing the movie when I was 10 or 11, however old I was when it came out. I remember not loving the movie back then, thinking like, okay, I've seen it now, I get the hype, whatever. As an adult watching it, it didn't get any better, but I feel like I'm much more, I don't know, I'm softer on the movie than I was before. Yeah. Like when I first saw this movie, this was me like first becoming like a movie geek. Right. So I'm just like, man, like this movie is not well written. Yeah. I'm like noticing these things as a kid for the first time. As an adult, I just kind of take it for what it is. You know, it's like, is it the worst movie ever made? No, I've seen far worse. We've reviewed way worse on this channel alone, but it's still a movie that critics rightfully did not like. Yeah, like it's understandable why you did not like it, but also right, you got to take it for what it is. Yeah, you got to take it for what it is, and it's like if you are gonna enjoy it, please like enjoy it, but if not, like don't be the person that's gonna like criticize it to hell, because it's like it's Soul Plane. Yeah, like, what if you had to guess? Because I'm looking at what it got on Rotten Tomatoes. What would you guess the Rotten Tomato score was? Okay, well, if Head of State, you said it had 30. It's got to be less than that. I gotta say it's like 20. Even lower, it's 18. Okay. 18%, which, to be fair, is higher than I expected, because I know how people hate on movies of that era in particular. I thought this would have like a single digit score. Yeah. Like when we did Johnson Family Vacation, that one had 6%, I believe. Are you serious? Yeah, and after rewatching it, it's accurate. I'm Soul sorry, Plane getting but I 18. Think Johnson Family Vacation is funny as hell. When was the last time you watched it? Like recently, maybe like when was the last time you watched it sober? Like a couple months ago. Really? Yeah, I think it's funny. We gotta agree to disagree on that one. But yeah, Soul Plane, there's a lot of jokes that don't quite land. Not because they're not funny at all. They just, it's a movie directed by a guy who's mostly known for directing music videos and writers who don't have a ton of writing credits under their belt. It just felt like a movie that, had they let the people who were in it improv their lines a little bit more, maybe it would have worked more, maybe it would have worked less, for all I know. But there's moments where I'm like, all the people in the movie are funnier than the material that they're reading. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's just part of being in movies, you know. Sometimes, especially if everybody's not on the same level, like, you know what I mean? So yeah, there are some characters in the movie that are kind of like, they understand like this is kind of like a black reimagining of Airplane. It's over the top goofy. You're not supposed to take any of this seriously. There are some characters who like really get that. Then there's others that think that they're like in a different movie, but still doing this really goofy shit. But you know, that just is what it is. So let's jump into before we jump into what we liked about the movie, this movie had a budget of $16 million with all the people in it. Only $16 million. Yeah, I'm sure the paychecks were low. This movie only made $14.8 million at the box office, which is a bit surprising because, like, everyone I knew as a kid saw this movie. Granted, they didn't see it in theaters, but
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think a lot of people did not see that in theaters. Like, you saw it after the fact. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I definitely feel like now that I'm having like an unlocked memory right now, I don't know if it was this movie, but I swear to God, I did actually see this, and I saw a guy in there with a video camera. Like, I'm not lying. Like, I feel like I'm having like an unlocked memory right now.
Yeah. I remember seeing. I didn't see this in theaters. I saw like a bootleg of it, and it was like one of the first times I saw like the Chinese bootlegs that like had a DVD menu and shit, and felt like legit,
like a real movie.
Yeah, and I remember watching this on bootleg, going, "Man, this is like high quality stolen movie shit." All right, cool. I'm cool with that.
Man, the good old days of the bootlegs, man.
That was a whole era.
I know.
These kids these days, they don't know.
They don't know nothing about that.
They don't know. They don't know about
all they got is streaming services.
Yeah, they don't know about the bootleg man at the barbershop. Come through with a trench coat and just open it and just have discs that aren't labeled correctly. Just have CDs in plastic bags.
Like, you think you got the right movie, you go home, it's like a completely different movie.
Yeah, one time I was at a barbershop and I was trying to get a bootleg of, ironically, a movie I actually saw in theaters. I was trying to get a bootleg of Barbershop 2 because I was like 11 or however old I was. And instead, it was Anaconda 2. And that movie fucking sucks.
That movie sucked really bad.
Yeah, like, granted, the first Anaconda ain't amazing, but like, it's the original. It doesn't have to be that good. When they made a sequel and it was worse, it was just like, damn.
Yeah,
they fucked up.
That was not good.
Yeah.
I'm also like, I'm biased because I'm scared of snakes, but I saw the movie anyway, but it still was just bad because it was just bad. Like,
funny enough, I also saw Snakes on a Plane on bootleg.
I don't know if I saw some. I feel like I went to go see Snakes on a Plane.
I wish I'd gone to see it.
I did.
I wish I saw that movie in theaters. That's a movie we got to add to this list.
Absolutely.
But before we add that to the list, what were some of your favorite parts of this movie?
One is definitely when they were doing the in-flight video. They were like actually
the Destiny's Child.
Yeah, the Destiny's Child song. Absolutely that. Two is definitely when they were showing how Coach in like first class, like the differences, and it's like they had like the like they were handing out, what were they handing out? Fucking Popeyes chicken,
and they were like, one napkin to two people, sharing is caring.
Oh my god, they had like the TVs up in like the little like the TVs up in the corner and shit like that. I was like, this is fucking hilarious. That and the whole scene in the beginning when Kevin Hart get his ass stuck in the toilet is some of
that whole sequence.
That whole thing was like, that was some of the funniest shit I ever seen. That's like definitely that moment where I gotta pause it because I'm laughing too hard.
Right.
It's
yeah. Anyone who thinks that this movie's not funny at all, if you just watch that and don't laugh, like, where's your childhood?
Yeah. Also,
where is your inner joy?
Like, you have a black hole.
Yeah. It's like unless you work at Spirit.
Yeah,
you should find that funny.
You feel like triggered by this. Then
speaking of which, what airline do you think he was flying on in the beginning? Like, I know it was like fictional, but like, what airline do you think that was based on? Because I definitely put Spirit.
I would definitely say Spirit or like fucking JetBlue or some shit.
Right. Yeah, like the way that the handler just like tossed the dog in the kennel. I'm like, yep, that's Spirit.
He was like listening to music and shit. And he was just throwing everything in there. I'm like, yeah, that's definitely Spirit or one of those budget airlines like mishandling your shit.
Yeah. In this movie, I mean, there's some funny shit in here. Like Tom Arnold playing a character whose last name is literally Hunky, like Honky. Well, him and his wife or girlfriend, whoever she was.
I think it was his wife.
Yeah.
I think.
Missy Pyle's character. Yeah. The fact that they both get jungle fever is fucking funny. Like, I don't know why it's so funny. Because, like, it's kind of problematic, but it's fucking hilarious.
It's funny because, like, the whole damn family actually did. Because the daughter does, and then the son was just trying to be black. Yeah, he was just trying to be black. So it's just, everybody says he reminds them of Steve from fucking American Dad. Like, if you look at him,
I've never thought about that, but Ryan Pinkston in this movie is for sure like Steve.
Like Steve.
Wow, that is hilarious. Yeah, I'd never thought about that.
Like the glasses, the whole deal. Like the hair, like
and
he
the
looks
music,
like him.
yeah.
He looks exactly. He like acts just like Steve. So
yeah. Holy shit! I never thought about that. I also always forget that Terry Crews plays the club bouncer in this movie, and I wrote down Terry Crews being initially intimidating to white people and then immediately being soft to white people is just so accurate. Yeah. And I don't know who had the foresight to know that this would be his real life someday. But
I feel like what we think people are like and obviously how they really are, somebody already knew. They just knew.
Someone knew.
They interacted with him like somewhere. Maybe it's on this movie, who knows? But somewhere
someone interacted with him on the set of Friday After Next, and they were like,
they knew. They're like,
I've seen this before.
Because
reminds me of Ben Carson.
Yeah, that switch was there.
Yeah, and then I always forget that Lil Jon and the East Side Boys and the Yin Yang Twins are in this movie.
Yep.
Always forget. Like, I always remember the song plays, like Shake It Like a Salt Shaker. Yeah. By the way, hadn't heard that song in forever. That made me feel old. But I always remember that they play the song in the movie. I always forget that they're actually in the movie, though. Yeah.
I feel like that's definitely the director, like, trying to feel comfortable, because he was probably like, this is probably a little, like you said, because he's never done much else. The
director, Jesse Torero, I think is how it's pronounced. This was his first feature-length directorial debut, and if your first full-length movie that you direct is a classic, I mean, whether we want to call it one or not, it is a classic. Everyone remembers when Soul Plane came out. If your first movie becomes a classic, I mean, kudos to you. You know, like, I'm interested in filmmaking. I want to make movies. My first movie probably won't be no classic. I'm probably not going to get Kevin Hart, Method Man, Snoop Dogg, and Monique in my first movie. And if I do,
he definitely was lucky, because I feel like he definitely had to connect, like, just doing all the music videos and stuff like that. So he could, he was just grabbing people, like, So, like you said, good luck to him,
Yeah, I mean, good on him, because Lord knows I could never. Well, I mean, not never, but realistically,
don't say never.
Yeah. Something else I appreciated about this movie, this is a weird thing to like about the movie. This movie is, like, pretty fucking racist. In a way that only early 2000s movies could afford to be racist. But it's racist against every group. Yeah. So it doesn't feel like, yes, the movie's kind of a minstrel show, but it's one where, like, everyone gets made fun of. Yeah. And that's the kind of comedy that, like, that's inclusivity right there.
Yeah, like, everybody gets talked about. Yeah, so it's like that South Park racism, like,
right? It's like you talk about everyone. Fuck with everybody, so it's like you can only be so offended by it.
You can't say, like, oh, they said this, and then, like, the next thing out their mouth is literally talking about somebody else. So it's like
this movie is also, like, fairly homophobic. Granted, it's the mid 2000s, so like most movies were pretty homophobic.
You shouldn't be surprised by that.
Yeah, but I will say Gary Anthony Williams playing Flame, like a character literally named Flame. I should be better than this as a person. I have a lot of gay and lesbian friends. That shit still cracked me up. Yeah. Like, the fact that they just had the audacity to call his character Flame, give him the lip gloss. I was like, I shouldn't find this funny, but this is fucking hilarious. Yeah. And that character could still exist in a movie today, and I would probably still find it funny so long as it was well written enough.
Yeah, I think that just falls under those, like, don't be upset at this. Like, just think about the time period and just
product of its era.
Yeah, like, you just gotta laugh at it and then just know you're a good person on the inside, and
you hope you're a good person on the inside, depending on how hard you laugh. Like, if you're just laughing like, ha ha ha, they called him queer, ha ha ha, like, then maybe you got a problem. Yeah. But
like, if that cracks you up, like, okay, maybe we need to have a talk. But okay.
Yeah. Let's talk about the negatives, because I have more than I had for the last episode.
My one negative, and it's definitely just like a personal thing. For some reason, I feel like even now, like, still, like, being an adult, I'm still just, like, I'm really grossed out by the couple that's, like, just trying to fuck
everywhere
all over the plane. I don't know why, but something about it is just like, I'm like, okay, y'all are doing it. Like, it's too much. Like, it's crazy. Too much.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, like, they make it pretty clear that they're both horny as fuck. Yeah. But he's not that good in bed. Yeah. So it's just like at a certain point, like, why are you still trying to fuck on this plane?
Also, like, it's like the another thing is like, how long is this flight? Like,
right? Like, how many nuts do you have to bust in the air?
Flight, yeah, like on this plane.
It's like they got right to it before the plane took off. So it's like you should realistically be good.
Yeah, after like one, like that should be enough. To,
yeah, it's like you can say flight. You've done it.
And then the other part is John Witherspoon, like him being blind, but that part where they drop the food, like they drop the food off to everybody,
yeah,
and he thinks the mashed potatoes is like this old lady's vagina, and I'm just like,
yeah,
why did they do that?
Yeah, there's a couple of scenes in this movie that
it was like too. It was just a little. It made me cringe a little bit, and I'm like, maybe I'm being like a prude. I don't know.
No, you're not being a prude. Like I love dirty humor, but like the dirty humor, it has to like work. It has to be funny. It has to be contextualized well, and that just wasn't the case because it's like you're blind. We get it. You can't see what you're fingering. That makes sense, I guess. But like on an airplane in first class with a fuck ton of people around with a woman who clearly was not interested in you.
Yeah. I was just like, I can't. That's like one of those parts of the movie, like if I really felt inclined, I would skip past it. Like, I don't need to see this.
Like, I'm curious what ended up on the cutting room floor for this movie.
Because if that made it.
Right.
Like, if that made it through, then something worse got left out.
Yeah. And it's like, this movie's not that long.
Yeah.
So, like, whatever they cut, they probably were cutting more so for time than, like, content clearly from the shit that they left in. So I'm just curious, like, what scenes got left on the cutting room floor? There are moments where I can kind of suspect, like, oh, there was a scene missing here, just continuity-wise, but it's also first-time director on a feature-length film.
Yeah.
You know? Shit happens.
Like, mistakes were made, but it's fine.
Right. Another negative I put was Monique playing the role of horny big woman again. She does that really well on The Parkers, but they give her a lot of character development on that show because she's the star of the show. Here, it just felt like she's playing that stereotype with nothing more behind it. Yeah, and it's a little cringe now, just because it's like we've come farther than that. Yeah. Other thing I wrote, I always forget that Snoop Dogg like dies, or they think he's dead.
Oh, because he took that.
He took the shrooms.
Yeah, he took the shrooms.
Yeah. Again, this movie's racist against everybody. Like when they're cracking jokes on my African mans, I'm like, yeah. In the 90s and 2000s, niggas were for sure cracking jokes on Africans.
Because that was definitely like the African booty scratcher like era. Unfortunately, like that was horrible. Like, oh my god.
And we're both dark skinned. I'm sure you got a lot of those comments in elementary and middle school. Yeah.
Like unfortunately, that was. We were cruel.
And all these light-skinned motherfuckers now, they want to come up to us and compliment us on our skin and shit.
Like, first of all, fuck you.
Look at that glow. You had a glow up. It's like, nah, nigga, I was this dark back in the day when you called me a tar baby. Fuck out of here.
Like, go to hell. Yeah, no. Remember, like, the meme says, every villain is light-skinned, okay? Think about that.
Every villain not in a Tyler Perry movie is light-skinned.
Oh my god.
Yeah, you can't have a dark skinned villain unless everyone else is dark skinned. Otherwise, your movie's just racist.
Yeah. At that point.
Yeah. But enough of the. One last negative. I just scrolled down and saw it. This movie also, again, 2004. A lot of stuff from that era did not age well. The whole she's about to be 18 thing with the white girl. Like, I know that actress was older than 18 at the time, but, like, it is a little creepy for my taste, personally.
Yeah. I also think that's another thing that's, like, a casualty of just, like, early 2000s movies is, like, that line between being, like, a teen, you know, that whole, like, about to be 18 thing. I feel like a lot of those jokes got made in a lot of movies back then. Like,
that's a whole plot point of the movie Waiting, which came out after this movie.
That's like that Ryan Reynolds movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that, his whole character is like he's trying to get with the chick who's about to be 18, and it's just like why? I mean, it was creepy then. Yeah. Like people called it out then, but it like now it's just one of those things like it really just ain't cool anymore at all.
Yeah.
Who'd you give your best performance to?
I would have to say, Kevin Hart.
I had him too.
Yeah, like I'd have to say Kevin Hart because I feel like out of all the ridiculousness that is going on, I feel like he's kind of seemed like the most like seasoned actor kind of like in the movie to me.
Yeah.
I think like his character and stuff like that, like so I definitely gotta say Kevin Hart was probably like the best performance or whatever. And it might have been because like maybe everybody else didn't have like the biggest roles and stuff like that, but he really just seemed like the person who was just like, he's been doing this the longest and like he knew how to play his character, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I wondered about that because this is before Kevin Hart's a star.
Yeah.
But I imagine they wrote this part for him.
Mm-hmm.
Or I mean they wrote it with him or maybe one other actor in mind because he really is good in the role.
Who else? Like I don't even know who else I could think would have been.
I mean, I could have seen if they altered it a little bit, I could have seen Cat Williams also occupy this role. He's just not he's not Kevin Hart. So like it would be weird to think of it now, but in 2004, if they had put Cat Williams in it, the only thing he was really known for at the time was Friday After Next.
Yeah.
I could see it, but Kevin Hart was the better choice between those two.
Yeah.
So
I think if Cat Williams was the person, it might have made a little bit more money. You think?
No, I feel like it still would have flopped.
Okay.
Because neither of them were big stars yet.
That's true.
And his only role that people really knew was Friday After Next. So like, if he kept like with the pimp chronicle persona that he has, I feel like this movie would have made less sense. Because Kevin Hart played a character who's like a bit of a fucking loser before he gets this money in the lawsuit.
Yeah.
So to have Cat Williams do it, I don't know if it would have worked. But I can't think of really who else they would have had fill this role.
Yeah, because I'm like thinking at the time that the movie came out, I'm like, who would have been like that comedic, like, you know, person
and
like,
young enough to do it, because like the other person I thought of, if this movie had come out maybe like 5 or 6 years earlier, maybe Bill Bellamy could have done it.
Okay.
Or maybe if this movie had a bigger budget, Jamie Foxx. But again, they were already too old to do this role.
Yeah, I think if Jamie Foxx was in it, it definitely would have had, I think it would have been still like silly, but I don't think some of the craziness in the movie would have made it. Like, I think the movie would have been a little different if Jamie Foxx was attached to it.
Yeah, because this was the same year that Ray came out. He would have been like,
I can't do this.
You can't fuck up my Oscars campaign.
Right, like,
Come
I
on.
can't do this.
It's like I had to learn how to play piano without seeing. Come on, man.
Yeah.
You can't do this to me. And then other than Kevin Hart, I had my honorable mention as Tom Arnold because he plays the geeky, out of touch white dude really well. And for this to be the same year or maybe a year or two before he ran for governor of California is objectively fucking hilarious to me.
Like, people ask you, like, what have you done in the past couple of years? Like, oh, I was in Soul
it's like,
Plane.
You're like, Tom Arnold, you're candidate for governor. What was the last movie you were in? Oh, this little reimagining of Airplane. You know, that comedy classic? Yeah. I play the white guy.
Yeah. Like, I definitely would have, I feel like if that actually came up as like a question that he probably was like asked, he probably lied. Was like, that wasn't me. Like
Arnold Schwarzenegger would have ate his ass up in those debates.
Absolutely.
What was the last movie you were in? Mine was Terminator 3.
Right.
Not a great film, but you know.
Like, you were not in the classic. Like, you were not in a Terminator film like I was. Yeah.
It's like, that's why I'm the governor. I need to stop trying to do that accent.
I feel like it's funny when anybody tries to do that accent.
Did you write down a best line for this movie? I surprisingly didn't.
No.
I couldn't figure out what I wanted the best line to be. Like, I have my favorite scene, but
yeah, I didn't put down a best. It wasn't really like a best line. Well, I mean, I guess it kind of is. It was just a part where the Tom Arnold, his character, was like talking to the daughter, and she just started naming all these like crazy ass sex positions. Yeah. I don't know why I thought that was funny, because I was like, seeing it, obviously, like, being younger, and you're like, what the fuck is all of that? And then even being older and being like, well, what the fuck is that? Like, you still like, what the hell is she talking about?
Yeah, like, because like as a kid I saw it and I was like, Okay, I understood about a third of that.
Yeah, like somebody.
And I thought I was like mature for being able to understand that much of it. And then I got older and I'm like, oh, I still only understand a third of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was like, maybe they were ahead of everybody.
They were
maybe.
inventing some shit. They were just hoping some shit caught on.
Yeah, which it probably did somewhere.
Yeah. Like I can imagine there's some place where some white teenage girl is telling her dad off about all the sexual things she's going to do with black guys.
And just started making shit up.
Yep. Exactly.
It was also funny because as she's naming them and like they're getting less common and there's like made up names. He's like, no. Like he was like so nervous.
He's freaking out just by the idea of what it might be.
Oh, and then the mom with her notebook writing the shit down on the side. That shit was funny too. That's
why I think there's like a bunch of scenes that got cut from this movie. Mm-hmm. She kind of just disappears from the movie, and something tells me that they had some form of a sex scene with her that they just like cut out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, wait, where are we at? Are we at?
I was going to ask what the sequel or reboot would be. But I feel like the Boondocks nailed what the sequel would have been.
Air Marshal 50 Cent.
Yeah, like everyone who hasn't seen the Boondocks cartoon, those first 3 seasons are pretty damn good. Yeah. The opening of season 2, they're going to see the sequel to Soul Plane at the movies. And 50 Cent plays the Air Marshal, and he just goes, I'm going to stop these terrorists or I'm going to die trying.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah, but if I had to name a Soul Plane sequel, it would be Too Soul, Too Fly. And unfortunately, John Singleton, who directed Too Fast, Too Furious, he is no longer with us, so he can't direct it. But I would gladly step into that director chair. I would do that for half of his quote. Just give me the reins.
Yes.
We're going to make another minstrel show in the sky. It'll be glorious.
I feel like now, I don't know. I just feel like the way... I feel like how would that be received now?
Terribly. Yeah. Unless, so if you did a movie similar to Soul Plane, you would just need to tone it back a little bit, I think, for people to fuck with it.
Yeah.
Because like there's a bunch of stuff, like a bunch of ideas in this movie that are really funny.
Yeah.
They just take it a tad too far. Like when they get to the terminal and it's just like all black people shit.
Yeah.
That to me is really funny, like on its own.
But like, also it's like, damn, this is racist.
Yeah, like the 99-cent store being in the terminal, which I've been in the airport many times. I wish they had dollar stores. Yeah, that's really like that's the one thing I saw. I was like, actually, they need that.
It was like I think also in that part, like it was a guy on the phone, like a payphone or some shit, but he was like talking about child support or something. I'm like, what? It's like what? Like that's okay.
Yeah, it's like they tried to cram every black stereotype into a really not long movie. Like this movie's 86 minutes with credits, so like trying to fit everything in, I feel like hurt the movie. If they toned it back a little bit, maybe. I probably would have cut some of the characters or maybe reduced them to like cameos.
Yeah.
But having said that, I mean, they pulled it off because as not great as the movie is, I still watched it and laughed about it. Yeah,
it's like,
you know,
you still watch it and it's still funny. So it's like maybe it just did its job. You know,
exactly. And it's like maybe we're just overthinking it, and like maybe it wasn't meant to be anything other than some shit you watch when you're drunk or high or both.
Yeah.
And in that regard,
I think we also need people need to appreciate those movies more. Like everything cannot be like, you know, the next great American film. Like it's not like, you know what I mean? So it's like some stuff you just got to take it. Like once again, you got to take it for what it is and enjoy it. Cause like it's fun. And like you said, you know, hanging out with your friends, you want to watch something like, you know, that'll have everybody laughing. Like that's definitely a movie you will put on. So it's just like.
There's one other thing I wanted to point out that I really enjoyed about this movie when they're going around with the drinks and he's like Colt 45 or Alizé.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would actually like really fuck with an airline that had those as the options. Like, I don't really drink Alizé or anything, but if that was just an option on a plane and I was about to go on vacation, like I'd be like, give me that. Yeah, give me a double shot of Alizé.
Yeah, like, hell yeah. Like I'm on this plane for a couple hours, like where else I'm really gonna buy Alizé at? Like fuck it.
I'm not about to buy it at the store.
No, but that, like I said, back to that whole scene, them handing out like chicken and like they had like the locker, like it was like actual like gym lockers and shit in there.
There's a lot of funny details in this movie. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot.
Speaking of the racism, when they realize that the Middle Eastern guy is like in coach or whatever, and then Monique goes up to him and she called him Osama. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, and granted, this is 2004, so this is not long after 9/11.
Yeah.
Americans in general are racist.
Yeah.
But I think that post 9/11 time was like the first time that level of racism was targeted at people who weren't black, and niggas were just glad to not be the butt of it.
It's not
finally.
us this time. Like thankfully, it's not us this time. But also, like that was horrible for.
Yeah, it's like we should be better.
Yeah,
but niggas in that era did not care.
No,
like I remember kids at school would say stuff like that when they'd see someone in like a turban, and I would always think it's ignorant. But I was a kid; I wasn't about to speak up on that shit. I didn't know how to. So, yeah, seeing that in this movie, I was like, that's a weird choice. But for the era, I'm willing to bet they thought that was about to get all the fucking laughs.
Yeah. They figured, like, everybody's making fun of, Middle Eastern people right now. So,
yeah. I will say, I think it was the second Harold and Kumar movie. Harold and Kumar go to Guantanamo Bay. I feel like they did that same joke much better because they did it just so much quicker.
Yeah.
And obviously Kal Penn being,
also
a
him being
dude.
Like a actual smart person in real life is so funny.
Yeah, like he was in the Obama administration, which
was like, that's great.
Is crazy. Yeah. Who did you want to give your additional flowers to?
I would probably say I actually really did like Sofia Vergara's her character. Like I thought for like the few times she was in there, like she was actually pretty funny. Yeah. And then like for that to kind of be like, like she was still pretty new at the time or whatever. Like I think she actually was pretty funny. So probably her, or I don't know. I would say Snoop Dogg maybe, but
he does a lot in a little amount of time in this movie.
Yeah, so like he definitely, I think coming also like him pretending to when they thought he died was actually really funny because like having to just be in a room not making sound, but the way they put the sunglasses on him and he's just like bouncing around in the front and shit like that.
Underrated because as an actor that's not easy to do.
Yeah, like maybe probably maybe like Snoop Dogg and then maybe Sofia Vergara's character. Yeah,
I wrote RZA, who did the music for the movie. Okay, because I did not know he did the music to this movie until today. Okay. But also, I mean, a member of the Wu-Tang Clan doing a movie that is very much so rooted in rap culture, in black culture. And the music for this movie, pretty spot on for the era. So, shout out to the RZA. Those are my thoughts on Soul Plane. If you haven't seen this movie, check it out. Yes. It's kind of hard to find, but if you just have one of those leftover barbershop bootlegs, more power to you.
Ask your parents.
Yeah. Ask your dad where he put all them bootlegs at.
But yeah, so like it's a classic. Sometimes, unfortunately, it is, but it's a classic nonetheless.
Yeah, a classic nonetheless. And that's all my thoughts on Soul Plane. That was Movies at 2 a.m. I'm Bryce.
I'm Sydney.
We will see you next week. Peace.
Bye.